Hello and welcome to assignment 2 of my sport development action. First of all, I know what you're thinking. I've got the headphones in, I've got this. I'm going to have this in, I'm sorry, because it's the only way I can actually have it so you can hear me. I've tried other things, but this is the only way that I can actually, so you can hear me. Anyway, this doesn't matter. I went to an Easter camp last week. It was really good for Premier Sports, as you saw from my assignment 1 video with Callum. Yeah, it was really good. Just to quickly go over my role of what I did. It's 4 days, 9:30 till 5. Very good. It made me realise, because 9:30 to 5, it's quite close to actually like a full day of work, not getting paid, and I feel like it was actually really good for me for that experience of actually working full-time coaching. And I just feel like sometimes sometimes when you're growing up, and when you realize that are you be able to cope with full-time work, and I feel like I did, and even though it was only 4 days, I didn't want it to end, and I feel like it's something that I'm really pushing towards now, and I don't want to do all these like these little like 1 hour sessions. I want to be working full-time. I want to be doing and it's made me click in my head that I'm ready. I did some shadow coaching, and I watched some other coaches do their thing, and I wrote some notes down. Unfortunately, I didn't have any videos because I wasn't allowed to, but that doesn't matter because I've got all the experience that I need, and obviously this is the best way to show you. You'll see by my facial expressions, when I mentioned some of the few things down, how much they actually meant to me and how much I enjoyed them, how much I didn't enjoy them, and I feel like this is the best way to say it, really. So yeah, I watched how they set up as well, because obviously at an Easter camp, they're not just turning up, coaching, and then going. They need to have transitions. They need to set everything up. They need to know how long to stay on a certain drill, skill, practice, whatever. They just know. So okay, they're on 20 minutes of doing this. Then they need to have like a 30-second talk. They need to lose less time talking, and so they can have more ball roll time, as they say. So yeah, I watched that, and I spoke to a lot of them when I actually watched them set up, and I said to them, so well, how come you're setting that over there and then you're setting that over there? How come you're not just integrating it into one? And he just said, so when they do their first drill for 10-15 minutes, they can quickly move on, so they're not just they're not waiting around to put the codes back down. And I thought it was better, because when I do my coaching, I set my drill up, and then I don't move it on progress. I don't just move it on to another like box made of cones or whatever, another net or something like that. At football, I actually like tell the kids, come and help me move. Right, we need to move this, move that, move this, and that. They actually moved it, which I think you get the best time from doing that, because already you're losing 2 minutes, and if you do that 3 times, you're losing 6 minutes of your session. Plus all your talking, it could be 10 minutes gone of an hour session. So I felt like that was really good by them, and it really helped me see what I needed to do for my coaching. So the wider social aspects of why I actually went, and why they actually run those sessions, was to get the kids off the street during the Easter time. They're only like 7, 8, 9, but it's to actually like to show them that this is what you can do instead of staying in and playing on your experts or playing on your tablet or on your phone. It keeps them active, active for a fresh mind, so that when they continue that mindset for when they go back to school after the Easter term. So I was speaking to some of them, and I said, what would you be usually doing when you're not actually, in this Easter camp? And they said they'll either be at home or they'll be out with their friends. But when the kids are out at that age with their friends, they're just messing around. Yeah, it's having a good time. But then when they go back to school, they don't have that mindset. They're still in that mindset. Oh, we've been running around during Easter. We want to just mess around. You know what I mean? So they need to have that mindset still, that they can actually go back to school with, and so then they can show the coaches respect for when they're at the camps. But then when they go back to school, they can also show that the teacher respect as well. And I've got some a reference later on to help back that up. And how can they use what they learned from the Easter camp for school? So, for example, when they're at the Easter camp, making new friends, speaking to people that they don't usually normally speak to when they're at school. They're walking around. Some might walk there, some might walk home, some with friends. No phones, like I just said before, no phones or Xbox. It's actually really beneficial for them actually being out, keeping that fresh mind, like I said, and not being stuck in when it was really lovely last week. So self-reflection for me, coaching in a new environment. Okay, it's always a struggle for everyone when they're in a new coaching environment, but I just feel like it wasn't too hard because I've been in that situation before. But if I'm not used to being in a new environment, then how am I ever gonna, get a job somewhere if I'm not, if I don't expect that? So I feel like I expected it beforehand and I coped with it well enough, because yeah, it's nervous. It wasn't nervous for me meeting coaches because they're there for the same reason I'm there, but it was nervous meeting, some of the children, and I just feel like that has made me realise that in future, not to be so nervous around children because that could make or break, you actually getting a job in the future. I already had that, so I had time to build, but if you're not comfortable with the children straight away, then that could be really not beneficial for you. Like I said at the start, it was like a full-time job for me. I've never actually done a full-time job in coaching before, so it was great. It was a breath of fresh air really for me, to actually do, so I could actually uh, realize that I have to wake up and do the exact same thing 9:30 till 5 every day. And I felt like on like beforehand, speaking to some of the other people that were going out on their placements, and I said to them, I'm a bit worried that on the third or fourth, fifth day that I'm not going to be as up for it, and I'm not going to be, carry it, wanting to do it, and I'm going to be like, I don't want to go. But actually on the third or fourth day, I felt like my best side of me came out, and I don't know, I felt like sometimes I push myself too much, and then I expect different things all the time. But with this, I didn't really expect. I expected, the same, and because I already expected it, and I got that, and I wasn't expecting too much. If you know what I mean, I wasn't expecting they're going to do this today, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do that. I expected, pretty much the same layout, the same different sports, but coaching it for an hour or coaching for an hour and a half, and then they're moving on, and I expected it, and it made me realize that is coaching at the end of the day, and that is coaching in the real world, and I'm not living in a fantasy. And yeah, I feel like that is made me see, and it's made me have the benefits I have now, for when I do my coaching when I'm outside of uni or when I'm in uni. New experience working in other sports, so archery and that was badminton, volleyball, sports that I've not actually coached before, and I feel like you're there, and at that moment you're like panicking because it's a new sport. Badminton, I've played it, but I've never coached it. Or archery, I've seen it, but I've never coached it. How am I supposed to? But that again, that's why they allowed me to shadow coach and watch other coaches, because I'm not going to dive in at the deep end with all this new sports coming on. So yeah, it was really beneficial for me watching and doing new experiences in other sports, because if I want to be a sports coach, I need to learn different sports. I can't just be one sport coach. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I might as well just get a job in football. So yeah. Helped me realise what I do in the future. Ties along with applied for a summer camp actually for this summer. Actually being there at the Easter time and actually working there 9:30 till 5, really long hours, made me see that that's the life for me. But I don't want to be in the comfort of my own front door, if you know what I mean. I don't want to be like a 5-minute drive away like it was for this. So I applied for a summer camp in America, and I feel like that is something that I'm actually going to work on, and that's where I want to be. I like somewhere abroad, and it's somewhere where I feel like I need to push myself more, because I need to push myself more to be actually out there earning money and as a coach, instead of doing. I've got all the experience now, and I feel like I need to push myself now, so actually go out and start earning some money and start seeing what it's like in the real world. So yeah, I feel like applying for that summer camp is allowing me to also move away as well, move abroad, and that's always something that I've wanted to do. So yeah, I feel like that's the best thing for me, and that's why I obviously did it. So I've got a couple of references right now. So I've got actually a quote from Sport England 2018, and he said around 1 in 2 women and a third of all men in England are damaging their health through a lack of physical activity. And if you stop and think about those numbers, around 1 in 2 women and a third of all men in England are damaging their health, and it's through a lack of physical activity. And it's mind-boggling to think that the older generation aren't actually as physical, aren't actually into physical activity as what some of them make out to be, and it's just a shame really because they never had that opportunity as a child, so that's why they've never started off doing that physical activity. It's much harder to start off when you're older. It is an unsustainable situation, and one thing that's costing an estimated 7.4 billion a year. So again, incredible figure there, 7.4 billion a year that it's costing. And if you think about it, you bring that number will continue to grow if the next generation up aren't actually physically active, which you can see is really bad for the burden of health, the social care, public services. Everything will lose money, and it's all to do with people just not being active. Being active could be half an hour to an hour walk somewhere a day, and it's silly really that they don't do it. But if they don't, if they don't start active, then they're not going to stay active, which then brings me perfectly to another Sport England quote. Sport England, start active, sorry, and stay active. And that was from 2011. This was a program that they actually ran in 2011 to get kids to start being active, so then they will continually stay active. And I feel like the older generation never had that opportunity to start being active, so then they never stayed active. And I feel like the Premier Sports gives the children the ability to start being active, even if they're not, if they're not inspired by sport, then they can come down, they can see someone who is inspired by sport, and then they can actually say to them like, come play with me. And it's sometimes it's not actually the sport that people struggle with, it's actually like the people involved, and they actually find it hard making friends during that sport. So I feel like a lot more children actually start being active than they will stay being active because of the children that are involved, because you're not going to be excited about a sport or a new sport if the other children there aren't excited with you. So yeah, a good program by Sport England in 2011. They start active, stay active. Another reference by Moore&Mahoney, 2002, helping kids become more busy on the street playing sport instead of doing something which could harm their future life. So again, they're only 7, 8, 9, but if they do something while they're in the street, or even getting told off by their parents, that it could harm their future life. Because if you think about it, they're at the age where their parents could just bring them in and they could just tell them to stop going, and they've got the the physical power over them to tell them no, you're not going there, or you're not going out anymore, which can ruin a child's freedom. So again, really good by Premier Sports for making the Easter camp, because it gives them they know where they are, the parents know where the child are, they're with the coaches all the time, so it's basically like they're at school, but a little bit more leeway than when they're at school. Actually, quote from Premier Sports 2017, and it's engage all pupils from those not normally inspired by sports. Like I said before, they want to inspire children through sport and through the budding stars of the future. It's hard to get into sport if you're not actually engaged in the sport, and it's harder enough if you're not engaged in sport and you're with people that aren't engaged as well, and it's hard for you to find that little bit of motivation. So they want to gauge all people's, and all the sessions that they did and sessions that I watched from afar. They're all really inclusive, and they all included everyone. And they're not just there to let the children play sport. They're there to learn, and obviously they take that back to school. And it's hard. It's really hard for some children to really be like, yeah, I want to play that sport. But if the children that they're with are motivated, or they don't want to do it, then it's really hard. Murphy 28. 2008, the goal is inclusion for all children with disabilities in appropriate activities. So again, Premier Sports, there's a lad, he came down with a wheelchair, and I was with the coach at the time, and he said, no, come and join in the archery, because it's not too physically demanding. So they were sat down in the wheelchair and playing archery, and he was really good at it. And again, because he was really good at it, and he really wanted to learn more, and that made the other children who was there at the archery um, actually want to learn as well along with him. And I feel like that's just a great incentive for all the other kids. They see someone who is in a wheelchair, but he's having really good fun, and he really wants to learn. And the other kids are like either messing around or they're not interested, but now then they turn interested. You know what I mean? And I saw that a lot of the time. And other disabilities there, autism and stuff, their attention span, you can find, or with ADHD, you can find that they're not actually engaged for a lot of times. But when they find something that they're bothered about and they actually want to do, then they clicks for them, and they're interested. And I feel like you could see that when I was at the camp. And the final reference that I've got is from Fraser Thomas, 2007, and we propose that youth sport programs actively work to ensure positive outcomes through developmentally appropriate designs and supportive child-adult parent/coach relationships. So, it's one actually going there and having a good time with your parents, but if with your coaches, sorry. Is another actually going there and actually talking to the coaches, and developing that coach and child relationship, and then you can take that back for your parent and child relationship, and they can take that back to the teacher and style and child partnership. Sorry, and it's all about developing a relationship and a partnership with that child, and that's what Premier Sports did really well, because they're only with them for like a week, but I developed, that coach and child partnership, and it allowed me to see, and it allows you to meet, their needs, because if you're in a coaching environment or a teaching environment, you need to meet every single child's needs, and that child's needs, could be they're either finding it too difficult or too easy. So how are you gonna make that child, how are you going to make that child be the best they can, and that either make them harder if they're finding it easy, or if they're struggling, how are you going to make that child find it a lot more easier than what all the other children are doing? And obviously the children that are just doing, they find it okay some bits, but other times they find it hard, then you keep them on that same level. And that's why I feel like developing that relationship with the children is really beneficial. And I saw that a lot when I was there at the camp, because there was one instance where the child was finding the football that we were doing, he was finding it really easy, and a coach, he just came up to me and was like, he's finding it really easy, just think of something on top of your head, go over to him and tell him, what can you do? So he's 8 years old, how he can make it harder for him. So I said to him, every time the ball comes to you, if you're good enough, only take one touch, if not, three maximum. One touch if you're good enough. And it was in his mind, because he had to think, like, so then he has to weigh up the pass, and how far he's going to pass, what he's going to do next, because he needs to think about his pass next, because if he messes it up, he's only taken that one touch, then they could lose the ball. So I made it really hard, and he struggled, and he came over to me and said, why did you only do that to me? And I said, because you were finding all the other stuff easy, and then he was the bottom one struggling, but I left him struggle, because that's how he's going to learn. And then next week he's going to be the next day he's going to be thinking, how am I going to then do this? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And, only 8 as well, so a lot to think about. But it really helped me, also go over, and that was the type of coach and child relationship that I had. Thank you for watching. This has been my part two, assignment 2 of my sport development action. The references are at the bottom of this, at the paper. Thank you for watching, and thank you.